So, yeah, part two of Undone, the hospital. Well, I have to admit, this was a really nice episode. I mean, I liked episode one, but this one was really, really good. And not for what you might expect. Sure, what is it? The realistic spiritual travels and the dimensional things and the mind images and all that was interesting to watch. And it kind of reminds you of the Inception sort of plot. However, for me, what made this chapter so good was how well the author or the writers incorporated this spiritual passing or this mental, imaging and all that to her relationships with the people around her and her acceptance of the persona that she is, or at least the starting of that. And in some ways, although the title of this part is called The Hospital, it would have been more appropriate, I think, if they called it The Acceptance. Because the entire episode is about her trying to accept the fact that she has this, I guess, power. Originally, I thought that this was going to be a story about Alma's experiences after she died and she was in the spiritual world and then coming back to the real world and back and forth. But it turns out that she survives that accident, but it unlocks, from what I can understand, a specific power that gives her the ability to go beyond the real world and go into alternate situations, such as being able to move forward and backwards in time, being able to transfer herself from one situation in her life to another. And she can look into things such as causality, as well as the butterfly effect, but also being able to continuously go back to a certain incident in her life. She could just look at how her change in the responses that she gives will change the effect of what happens, especially with the relationships with her mom, the relationship with her boyfriend, the relationship with her sister. And through that, she's starting to understand maybe she doesn't always have to be the rebel that she feels she needs to be to identify herself in the way that she originally thought. And because of that, I also feel that the title, The Acceptance, will be pretty good because of the fact that this power gives her the ability to try to see if she doesn't have to be the rebel, and she could start accepting both her life as well as herself through the experiences that she has. And because of that, I thought that this episode was really, really good. Now, knowing how this is kind of a mind twist sort of series, it's a little bit hard to review Undone without talking about the dream sequences or the spiritual sequences and how I felt about that. Eventually, somebody's going to ask because that's probably the most obvious thing that people will see, and I would presume that a lot of reviewers would just talk about that. And it's pretty nice. I mean, I do have to admit, I do like the artist's style when you look at this in terms of the spiritual world and how her mental images, span out. When she goes into these surreal sorts of environments, this art style works really well in kind of showing a dream-like sequence. And aside from that, yes, the moving forward, moving backwards in time, going through a fantasy sort of situation to immediately a reality sort of situation is interesting. And once again, I would say it's very much like Inception. However, there are other animations out there who have, to my experience, done it better. Probably the biggest master of that is a gentleman named Satoshi Kon. And if you ever want to see a very good thriller that will really twist your mind around, then go see something called Perfect Blue. And many of his animations were so good that although a lot of directors won't admit it publicly, I hear that it inspired movies like Inception as well as Black Swan and many of these others. And you actually do see very similar sorts of images in these movies compared to Satoshi Kon's artwork or animation. Although Satoshi Kon's works came out much earlier. And so, yeah, compared to that, this one's a little bit more blunt and in your face, and you could see, where the surreal is coming in. Whereas in Satoshi Kon's, you really didn't know, and that's why it messed up your mind. You were as bewildered as the person in the animation with regards to what the heck is going on, because it really did mess with your mind. Here, it's pretty obvious that, when you're in the surreal world, you're in the surreal world, and when you come back to the real world, yeah, it's there. But it was pretty creative in how it was done. And the best part, I will repeat again, is not that it was kind of like a dream-like Inception sequence, but using the dreamlike Inception sequence to continue on the drama and the psychological trials that Alma is going through and the relationships that she's having. So I thought that it was really well done, not in the actual dreamlike sequences themselves, but how they used it to move this drama forward. And I hope that they will continue to do it that way. Now, there is also that mystery going on with regards to her dad, and we do find out he was killed rather than died, 20 years back. And so this is his plea to Alma to somehow change the situation. Is he going to come back to life? I don't know. I mean, this is interesting in a sense that it is surreal enough that all of this may be just a figment of Alma's imagination, and maybe she is in a spiritual world dreaming about the entire thing, or maybe she's just in a dream world, sleeping and going through this entire thing. Now that will be quite interesting in itself as well. So this is very much a Twilight Zone sort of situation. But again, unlike a lot of other mind dimension sort of stories or episodes that you've seen in other series, this one takes a creative route because it doesn't use that dreamlike sequence as a crutch and say, look at this, isn't this great, but instead uses it as a vehicle to actually keep the drama going. The drama is actually the central part of this entire thing, and my gosh, I am glad that they chose Rosa Salazar for this, because of the fact that not only is she good at showing the various expressions of bewilderment when she goes through these dream sequences, but wow, by using this power that she has, she's starting to understand a lot more about herself. And despite it being an animation, you could feel through her voice acting, just the experiences she's having and how it affects her as a person. And that, to me, is far more interesting than the dream sequence itself. So I am looking forward to seeing how Undone goes. And I know a lot of people have told me that this is a slow burn. But if it's this level of quality in terms of drama, yeah, go ahead. Be as slow as you want, because a lot of people I know tend to like these stories to reveal everything, right? The end is what you want to get to, and people will get too impatient and say, when are we getting to the end? But for me, I've always found that these types of stories are great, not for the final conclusion, but for the journey that you can go through. And if the episodes are as good in the future as the one that I saw here, then wow, this is going to be a really good ride. Anyway, that's about it for this episode. And if you saw episode 2, what did you think about it? Did you think that this was a very good way, a very good vehicle of showing a personal interaction, a personal conflict in a very different manner from what you would see in normal drama? And if you have any comments, and you could put your comments in the comment section below, I would appreciate it. And thank you very much in advance. Anyway, I'll continue to watch Undone, and as I go through the episodes, I'll make more of these videos, and I hope you join me at that time. And until the next episode, happy anime watching, happy animation watching, happy movie watching, and as always, Jaya, nice day, everyone.